everyone, this is Karen.
Hello everybody, I'm Shane.
Today we're looking at part 2 of The Phone of the Wind.
Helping people deal with grief.
And the vocabulary words are incredibly.
Incredibly.
What you did was incredibly brave.
Process. Getting gray hairs is just part of the aging process.
Oh, it's okay. It looks great on you.
Thank you.
Overcome. The basketball player overcame a serious ankle injury and is playing at a high level again.
Inspire.
The
character in the TV show inspired Monty to become an engineer.
Attach.
I've
attached my business card to the form. So we're still talking about this wonderful idea to help people deal with grief. It's called the phone of the wind. Then ever since that designer in Japan who started this whole idea of talking to your loved one, I think a lot of people adapted the same idea in their own country too.
Because of course it's really, really important that when you're dealing with grief, that you talk about it.
You're right.
You need to talk it out. You need to get it off of your chest and express your emotions and feelings. So people started copying this idea in other places, like in California, a man lost friends or people that he knew in a fire. So he also used one of these phones to be able for people to come and be able to talk to those who were deceased.
And I remember in Washington too, a phone was attached to a tree and it was dedicated to a girl who has lost her life too. And you know, last year, because of COVID-19, so many people, millions of people have lost their lives. And I remember in Colorado's Aspen Mountain, the phone was also set up there for people who actually want to go there and talk to their loved ones too. But for me, it's a wonderful idea.
Yeah, it's really inspiring, and I think that people should replicate this all over the place because I think it is a really good way to deal with natural disasters in particular.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, let's learn more about the phone of the wind.
Let's go.
The phone of the wind, helping people deal with grief.
The phone of the wind cannot connect people to the afterlife, but it can help them open up. Losing a loved one is incredibly difficult, especially when it's sudden. An important part of the grieving process is expressing your feelings. Bottling up your sadness can make it harder to overcome a loss. While talking to others is a great way to work through your feelings, it can be difficult for some. The phone of the wind gives people a private space to verbalize their thoughts and find closure.
Welcome to Live Interactive English. I'm Kim.
And I'm Mike.
And we're continuing our discussion today about the phone of the wind. This very beautiful art installation put in by a 70-year-old Japanese garden designer that helps people deal with their grief.
That's right. In 2010, Itaru Sasaki put this phone in. It's not connected to anything, but he put it there to speak to the spirit or the soul of his cousin who had sadly died of cancer. That was in 2010. Of course, a year later, when they had that terrible disaster there in Fukushima, in that area with the earthquake and the tsunami, many people died. And suddenly, a lot of other people were interested in using the phone of the wind to have a final conversation with someone who had died, who they had lost, and they were dealing with their grief and their sadness, so they could speak through the phone of the wind to the spirits, to the souls of their dearly departed relatives and friends.
And as we see in the article, the phone of the wind cannot connect people to the afterlife, but it can help them open up. Losing a loved one is incredibly difficult, especially when it's sudden, just like the very sudden tsunami that they had in March 2011.
That's right, yeah. People are suddenly there, and then they're there, and then suddenly they're not there. It can be incredibly difficult, incredibly sad, incredibly emotional. As you can probably assume, when you lose someone, there are a lot of emotions. There's a lot of sadness. That's why using the adverb incredibly is a very good choice, because it means something done at a very high level or in a very sort of extreme kind of range. When we're talking about incredibly, we're talking about very or really, really. For example, what you did was incredibly brave. It was very, very brave what you did.
Yes.
Well done.
Thank you.
You're a very courageous person. All right, back to the article. An important part of the grieving process is expressing your feelings. Yes, this is absolutely true, not just for people who lost people in disasters or, using the phone of the wind. For anyone in the grieving process, an important part is expressing your feelings. Grieving is going through the emotions of loss, of grief, losing someone, and we have a process as we do this. And an important part of that process is talk about your feelings. Don't keep it inside, or as it says in the next sentence, bottling up your sadness can make it harder to overcome a loss. Yeah, talking about your feelings, especially difficult, sad, complicated feelings, is the best thing to do in that process.
Yes, you shouldn't try to bottle it up, which means keeping it inside of you.
I'm okay. No,
because
I'm okay.
Eventually the bottle will pop
Exactly.
and you will have a harder time
Yep.
in this process. A process is a series of actions. You can think of it like step 1, step 2, step 3. These series of actions need to happen to get a result. For example, getting gray hairs is just part of the aging process. As you get older, you might get some gray hairs, some wrinkles, things like that. This is part of the process of getting older.
Yeah, it is. Anyways, when you face some great challenge like getting gray hairs, no, that's not a great challenge compared to many, but if you lose someone, if you're fired from a job, if you get your heart broken in a relationship, these are difficult things. These are great challenges, and we often have to, not often, but sometimes have to overcome these great challenges in our life. And to overcome, well, this is a verb we often use when we talk about facing great challenges or difficulties in our life. Sometimes this happens and we have to fight through it. We have to try to be successful or reach our goal even when it is something quite difficult. And we use the verb overcome to talk about that kind of thing. It's not for a simple or easy thing. We only use overcome for something that is difficult in our emotional life or in our work, in our studies, when we're trying to make ourselves better by beating a bad habit or something like that. You can overcome it, you can win through, you can be successful, but it might not be easy. For example, the basketball player overcame, past tense, the basketball player overcame a serious ankle injury and is playing at a high level again. Ooh, I remember that last year and he fell and his ankle twisted. And everyone's like, he's never going to play basketball again. No, he overcame that and he's back to being one of the best in the league. Well done.
Good for him.
Yes.
And while talking to others is a great way to work through your feelings, it can be difficult for some. The phone of the wind gives people a private space to verbalize or talk about their thoughts and find closure. It can be hard to talk to other people, but if you can sort of talk to the wind or just put your thoughts out there without expecting a reply from someone, that can be much easier for people.
Sure, people are shy or they don't know the right words or they're afraid of saying something wrong or they just don't know who to talk to. But talking to anyone or even to the wind is better than, as we said, keeping it bottled up, keeping it inside you. Let's take a break and then we'll be back to find out more ways that the phone of the wind has helped people.
Hello， 大家好，我是 Hanny。2011年，日本发生了311大地震，引发了海啸，造成大约16000人死亡。那么佐佐木就把他的风之电话亭开放给大众使用，让人们可以把来不及对亲人说的话给说出来。虽然逝去的亲人听不见，可是却能帮助活在伤痛里的人来敞开心胸。课文就写到说，失去家人是非常难受的。那么在哀悼的过程中，重要的一部分就是要把你的感受表达出来。如果是压抑自己呢，可能会让你更难以克服你的失落跟悲伤。那虽然说找人谈一谈是个解决方法，可是对某些人来说这是很困难的。风之电话亭它刚好就提供一个私密空间，让人可以把他的心思给说出来，找到解脱。好，这边有3个单字 incredibly 这个副词表示极度怎么样，或者是难以置信的。那么 process 它表示过程程序。overcome 这个动词表示克服战胜。那注意它里面不是有个 come 吗？所以它的动词3态就是照这个 come 的变化变成 overcome overcame overcome。好，那这边还有4个重点。
第一个是片语动词 bottle up， 它是表达压抑、封藏，是指压抑情绪的那种意思。其中这个 bottle 在这边当动词，原本是指说把什么装到瓶子里面，引申来表达抑制的意思。所以 bottle up 就好像说我们把感情塞进瓶子里面，把它封起来，然后可以用来表达压抑啊、隐藏，像是你强烈情感或是怒气等等。举例来说 ，Are you okay? I'm here if you need someone to talk to. Don't bottle up your emotions. 你还好吗？如果有需要谈一谈，可以找我，千万不要压抑你的情绪哦。好，那第二个重点是 make 加受词加形容词，它是表达使某人或某事物成为怎么样，变得怎么样。当这个受词是不定词，也就是 to 加原形动词的时候，你不能直接把它摆在 make 跟形容词之间哦，你要用虚受词 it 来代替受词的位置，然后把真正的受词这个 to v 移到句尾，所以会变成 make it 形容词 to 加原形动词。举例来说 ，swimming goggles make it easier to see underwater。泳镜、蛙镜呢，使得在水中看景物变得更容易了。第三个重点 while 在这边当连接词，就跟 although 意思相同，是表达虽然、尽管的意思。举例来说 ，While Alan is short, he's the best player on his team。虽然 Alan 的个子不高，但他却是他们队上最厉害的球员。第四个重点 work through 在这边表达逐步解决处理，尤其是指困难棘手的问题。例如They are receiving marriage counseling to work through their problems。他们正在接受婚姻咨商来逐步解决他们彼此之间的问题。好，接回到课文中。
The phone of the wind, helping people deal with grief.
Sasaki's phone of the wind has inspired others around the world. In California, an artist constructed a replica after his friend and 35 others died in a fire. In Washington, a phone was attached to a tree in a park. The phone was dedicated to a young girl who passed away suddenly at just 4 years old. Earlier this year, a similar phone was set up on Colorado's Aspen Mountain for people who have lost loved ones in the COVID-19 pandemic.
All right, so the phone of the wind began in Japan with one man talking to his cousin, and then hundreds or thousands of Japanese people wanted to talk to the people they lost in the terrible earthquake and tsunami. But now it seems it's left Japan, and it is helping people around the world. Yeah, the next sentence says, Sasaki's phone of the wind has inspired others around the world. So not just in Japan, it's inspired others and I guess is helping others too.
Yes, to inspire is to make someone feel they can do something. The character in the TV show inspired Monty to become an engineer. So Monty saw this person on TV and thought, hey, I want to do that too. It inspired him to become this engineer that he is today. So you see someone doing something and you feel impressed by it or you feel it affects you. You really want to do that thing too. So you've been inspired by someone.
Yeah, if you have a hero or an idol, someone you look up to and they did it and you think, I can do that too, then that person is inspiring you to try to do something maybe a little difficult, or in some way that's good for you, like with the phone of the wind. And where is it helping people? Well, here's an example. In California, an artist constructed a replica after his friend and 35 others died in a fire. Very, very interesting. That could have been that fire in Oakland that went through the art community there. I think around 35 people died in that, but that could have definitely helped. Again, it was a disaster. There was a party or something, a big fire started, and all these people didn't escape and sadly died. So that's helping the people who were there or who knew those people deal with their grief. And here's another one. In Washington, a phone was attached to a tree in a park. Interesting. We don't know if that's Washington State or Washington, D.C., but anyway, in another part of America, not California, they have another phone, and it is attached to a tree in a park. To attach, the verb means to join. You're taking two things that are fine on their own, that exist on their own, but you're joining them together, maybe by sticking them together, tying them together, gluing them together. Through some kind of process, you're taking two things and making them into one thing. For example, I've attached my business card to the form. Okay, so you have your form, a big piece of paper and a little card, and with a paper clip or a staple or some tape, you attach the card to the form.
Yep. Now this next part is talking about this phone in Washington. Again,
Oh, okay.
I think it might be Washington State, north of California.
Right.
The phone was dedicated to a young girl who passed away suddenly at just 4 years old. Earlier this year, a similar phone was set up on Colorado's Aspen Mountain for people who have lost loved ones in the COVID-19 pandemic.
Absolutely.
Itself another big disaster that we've been dealing with. So this thing is useful and it's spreading all over the world, already reaching the States, and it's good for people to process their emotion.
It's really sad, but it's also really beautiful to find that there are ways that, you know, without seeing a special doctor to help you with your emotions, you can just find this phone and be on your own and say all those things that you wanted to say to the person when they were still around. We'll take a break and then we'll be back with more.
佐佐木的风之电话亭启发了在世界各地的其他人，像在加州就有一位艺术家，他的朋友跟另外35个人命丧火海，于是他就打造了一座风之电话亭的复制品。那么在华盛顿州的一座公园里面，有一只电话，它被固定在一棵树上面，这是要献给一位突然离世的4岁小女孩。然后在今年3月，科罗拉多州的雅斯平山也有出现一只类似的电话，那就是为了那些因为新冠肺炎而失去亲人的人所设立的。好，那这边有2个单字 inspire 这个动词表示启发、激励或是鼓舞。那么 attach 这个动词表示装上啊、固定或是连接。我们可以用 attach A to B 来表达把 A 装到或者是附在 B 上面。单字例句有写到说把名片附在这个表格上，麦克老师就说这可能是用回纹针啊、胶带或者是订书针来把这个名片固定在表格上嘛。这时候老师说的 paper clip 就是回纹针，那么 staple 则是指订书针。好，今天回到课文中。
The phone of the wind, helping people deal with grief.
Loss is a natural part of the human experience. When we lose someone close to us, it weighs on us for the rest of our lives. Creations like Itoru Sasaki's Phone of the Wind help make it a little bit easier to carry that burden.
And we're back talking about the final part of our article on the phone of the wind, and it begins, loss is a natural part of the human experience. When we lose someone close to us, it weighs on us for the rest of our lives. Weighs on us, you can think like a literal weight on your shoulders. It brings you down, it makes you feel heavy. It's not a good feeling to have.
Right, it's a difficult thing to carry around with you. Losing someone close to you is something that will change your life forever. But creations, as we read, creations like Itaru Sasaki's Phone of the Wind help make it a little bit easier to carry that burden. Yeah, we often talk about sadness or these terrible events as a weight. When you carry a weight, you're moving it around with your strength. It's not easy, but you're making the effort to move it around. And a burden is kind of like a weight. It's something heavy that you have to carry. So the phone of the wind, basically, we're saying here, makes it a bit easier to deal with this sadness and things like that. So there you have it. Sounds like a really interesting idea.
It does. And for our what do you think question, what advice would you give someone who is dealing with the loss of a loved one?
Well, I think we got some good tips from our article. I would tell them to find someone that they trust, someone who's close to them, and talk about their feelings. That would be a really important one. And I would also pass on the advice that a lady said to me after my father died. She said to me, take care of yourself as well, right? You can get kind of lost in your sadness a little bit, but you have to remember that you're still around. You still need to do the good things that you need for yourself. So don't kind of get lost in your emotions. You do have to kind of carry on because that is what your loved one would want for you too.
Definitely. That is very good advice.
All right, guys. Well, that's all the time we have for today. We hope you are taking care of yourselves. We hope you're dealing with things. Find someone who you love and trust. Talk about your feelings. Don't keep them bottled up. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. And we'll see you back here sometime very, very soon. Until then, bye-bye.
在人生的旅途中，难免要面对亲友的死亡。失去亲密的人会让我们在往后的日子心情很沉重。那也许像《风之电话亭》这一类的创作品，就可以帮助人们稍微减轻一点这个沉重的负担。好，那我们最后补充一下，文中用到 weigh， 就是那个体重重达多少那个 weigh on 加上人或是事物，可以表达使某人心情沉重或是担忧重压于什么什么的上面。好，那么以上是今天的讲解，同学别走开，马上回来哦。
The Phone of the Wind, helping people deal with grief.
The phone of the wind cannot connect people to the afterlife, but it can help them open up. Losing a loved one is incredibly difficult, especially when it's sudden. An important part of the grieving process is expressing your feelings. Bottling up your sadness can make it harder to overcome a loss. While talking to others is a great way to work through your feelings, it can be difficult for some. The phone of the wind gives people a private space to verbalize their thoughts and find closure. Sasaki's Phone of the Wind has inspired others around the world. In California, an artist constructed a replica after his friend and 35 others died in a fire. In Washington, a phone was attached to a tree in a park. The phone was dedicated to a young girl who passed away suddenly at just 4 years old. Earlier this year, a similar phone was set up on Colorado's Aspen Mountain for people who have lost loved ones in the COVID-19 pandemic. Loss is a natural part of the human experience. When we lose someone close to us, it weighs on us for the rest of our lives. Creations like Itoru Sasaki's Phone of the Wind help make it a little bit easier to carry that burden.
On Wulai Old Street, there is a red and white building. The sculpture of a man on its outside attracts visitors. Atayal Museum was built in 2005. It shows Atayal life and culture. The Atayal tribe is Taiwan's third largest Aboriginal tribe. Textiles and facial tattoos are a part of their tradition. Atayal Museum has 3 floors. The first floor introduces Atayal roots and history. Up on the second floor are weapons, musical instruments, and everyday items. The third floor displays their delicate textiles. The museum holds permanent and special exhibitions. Rich collections draw visitors into the world of Wulai. They can experience the spirit and culture of the Atayal people.
See you next time!